I know you both use the word collapsing, so you agree that there's a problem here, but I think you, from studying both of your sort of perspectives, you think that the solution and the cause of the problem is different.
I mean, I put bets on. I put bets on. I put bet. That's what I do. I put bets on. At the beginning of COVID, we knew the government was going to give an enormous amount of money out. Total amount of money now. UK government deficit since the beginning of COVID is £1 trillion. US number is $14 trillion. That's £20,000 per UK adult. My background is I understand that when the distribution gets worse, when inequality gets worse, living standards fall. So when the UK government was going to give £1 trillion out, all I wanted to know was who's going to end up with that money. That's all I wanted to know. And I mean, the US number, 13 trillion, 14 trillion, is just outlandish. But I think the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my whole life was that at the beginning of COVID, the very beginning of COVID, we knew governments across the world were going to be giving out tens of trillions of pounds, dollars, euros. Nobody even thought to ask who's going to get tens of trillions richer. Nobody in the Conservatives, nobody in Labour, nobody in the Republicans, nobody in Democrats, nobody in the media, nobody in academia, nobody at the central banks. Nobody asked this. It's almost beautiful. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So I sat down and I did the analysis at the beginning. Because lockdown is essentially banning the spending of the rich and replacing that spending of the rich with printed money from government. What happens is the government gives workers money, they use that money to pay their bills, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage. It goes to the rich. The rich can't spend it because they're locked indoors. And what you get is essentially an enormous amount of money from the government to the poor, to the rich. And this massive, massive transfer of wealth. That was so obviously going to happen at the beginning of COVID. Nobody discussed it, which I think is itself amazing. Let me ask you a question, right? If we were now to pause the economy for 2 years, and during that pause, massively increase wealth inequality, what do you think would happen to broad living conditions when we unpaused?
See, one of the things that I think happened during the pandemic is everything went digital. And entrepreneurs and investors did actually think about what would happen. The investors immediately boomed stocks like Zoom and Microsoft, and we ended up with the Magnificent Seven. I don't know if there's 7 big tech companies in the USA market. And those big 7 companies have gone from 5 trillion valuation to 17 trillion valuation in the time of the pandemic. And if you think about what did the pandemic do, everyone had to work from home, so we all had to have Microsoft subscriptions. Everyone went onto websites, so we all went to AWS, Amazon. We all started buying and learning how to buy from Amazon rather than buying from our local high streets. Every business in the world figured out how to run their business remotely. We had this massive transformation. It's actually a wholesale transformation of society that we all learned how to live and work differently. I saw a boom in entrepreneurship. So what I saw as an entrepreneur accelerator, someone who runs an entrepreneur accelerator, is just there was this sudden boom in people launching businesses, setting up Shopify accounts, setting up YouTube businesses. So the money really has moved from the traditional economy, the 2019 high street economy, over to the digital economy. And what we see is that the investors know what's going on and they just invest in this Magnificent Seven company. I think 50% of the gains of the S&P 500 is tech companies. So all the money just goes flooding into the technology companies. My belief is that technology is really dividing people. That essentially if you take anyone from any background, if they work in technology, if they're in media, tech, finance, any of that stuff that operates online, they tend to actually do pretty well after the pandemic.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you think the average Brit, American, Australian, wherever the person out there is watching, if they quit their job and go work in tech, do you think they'll be able to get financial security relatively easily?
Depends when you define financial security. The issue with house prices.
The ability to raise a family, have a home.
Yeah. So having a home is a big issue, right? So here's what I see with houses, because houses annoy me as well.